So I saw this article in the Wrap about Lionsgate partnering with Runway, and I thought this was interesting because this is the first I've heard of generative AI software being used in an actual production environment. So I went to the RunwayML website and made an account, and it comes with 400 credits, so you can try a few generations. And for the demo version, you can only use Gen 3 Alpha Turbo or Gen 2. And Gen 3 Alpha Turbo requires a source image. So here we have a picture from New Zealand, and I gave it the prompt, the camera pans left to reveal Gandalf and Mario enjoying milkshakes and french fries. I just wanted to give it something really difficult just to see what it comes up with. So it's successfully turning, generating new mountains. But where's Gandalf? It just kind of ends. I was very confused. So I thought maybe it was because those are copyrighted characters. Maybe I need to do something more generic. So for my next prompt, I just said, a cow dances in the middle of a field. And as you can see, it interpreted it as doing a drone shot over the field. But the problem is that isn't what I asked for. And so this test was done on Gen 3 Alpha Turbo, which requires an image. So I switched it to Gen 2, which is an older version, but it does allow text to video. Okay, so this is pretty neat. I've got a cow in a field, so that's good. He's not really dancing though, and the fur on his ears looks pretty weird, and his screen right leg looks like it's kind of folding in. It's something. So at this point, I ran out of credits and I had to get an unlimited account, which costs $100 a month, but gives you unlimited generations. And so I'm just going to show you a whole bunch of things I generated. And I want to show you all the generations. So I'm not cherry picking these. These are just all the different things that I tried out with it. And at first, I was just giving it some really, pretty wild prompts just to see what he'd come up with. And that moose was cool. The water slide's all right. This one is weird. I don't know. I wanted the pineapples to rain down, but they'd kind of like explode out. This one's also pretty strange. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but not this. But all right. The main issues that I kept running into over and over again are like severe object permanence problems of stuff appearing or disappearing. It has a lot of trouble with people. Like pretty much every time there's a bunch of people on the screen, you're going to see someone doing something weird, which can be kind of fun and funny to try to find the weird stuff going on, like that lady's holding a present that's on fire. But that makes the footage pretty much all unusable. You'll also notice there's a lot of speed problems. It seems like often, for some reason, the footage looks like it's in slow motion, and I'm not sure why it does that. Even just simple things like the chairs in this all look really weird. So it's just like it's like every shot something is weird. Where are the windows on that house? Just always there's something weird happening, and it's very frustrating, and it's very hard to get something usable. And I'd say the areas where it excels are landscapes, and if you have a person just standing still staring at the camera, it does that really well. Or if it's just really close to its training data, then it'll do shots pretty well. And then I started wondering how it handles it if you make a copyrighted prompt. And so I tried having it make Elsa, and it was weird because it's like it generated it, and then after it said it was blocked. Same thing with Mario. I tried another prompt being a little more vague instead of plumber jumping into a question mark brick. It blocked that also. So then I tried a few others. I tried Finn the Human, and that does look a little bit like Finn the Human. He's got the hat and the blue shirt, and there's like dollar store Toothless in the background, and it is animated. And so then I tried Finn the Human fighting Toothless. Not that Finn would ever do that, but so it did seem to understand Toothless as a black dragon. So I thought that was interesting. I'll get into that a little bit more later. I want to talk a little bit about the things that it does really well. And The thing that it does best is landscapes. Like landscape flyovers are very consistently good. Within 3 or 4 generations, you're gonna get something usable. And I like the level of detail. This one was nice. I asked it to do fog, and it did a great job. That's just what I wanted it to do. Nice detail here in the foreground of all the trees. I don't see too much morphing or anything. That's really nice. This farm is a little weird, but it's all right. Uh, then I started trying like weather other than just sunny days, and it has a lot of trouble with rain. Things start getting weird when you ask it to do rain. It sometimes almost looks like it's putting the rain in as a composite effect over the footage or something, or it kind of appears almost as artifacts in front of it. this this storm gets a little out of control. I don't know what's going on there. And this desert rain, it just was totally baffled what to do with that. And if you give it a source image of a landscape, it usually does a pretty good job of, doing a flyover or a camera movement. It didn't quite get it on this one, but on this one, this looks pretty good. The kelp on the bottom right kind of turns into rocks and sand a little bit, but overall, it's a pretty good generation. And this one's fantastic. This is really nice. Made a nice beach there, some waves coming in, houses on the hillside. That's really great. And here's another one that came out really nice. There's some really subtle movement on the branches and stuff that looks pretty natural, and it did a good job generating new content that fit in with the original image. And this one's pretty good. The generated area definitely looks kind of like it's a repeating pattern of grass, but it's still pretty solid. This one, the trees look terrible, but it did a great job on the water. The water reacting with the rocks and stuff, that's really neat. And if you give it like a picture from over the shoulder, it seems to handle that really well. Like look at the hair movement. That's very impressive. There is a big caveat with that, though. The shot really has to be from the waist up. If you have the full length person in there, it starts getting pretty weird. There's a lot of kind of shuffling movement or slow motion. It's nice that it is doing the shadow casting pretty well. And it's like the first 2 or 3 seconds of the clip actually look really good. And then it quickly starts falling apart the longer it goes. So it's like 2 seconds looks okay, and then it just starts getting kind of mushy and weird. And I think that's why they limit the clips to 10 seconds, is it's probably just going to decay more and more the longer it goes. But it does have a lot of trouble with human motion, which is frustrating. So then I was getting kind of interested in how it would handle people dancing. The short answer is it's not great. There's a ton of morphing and just weird stuff happening and slow motion, and it's not good. But what's interesting is you can only export MPEG-4 in GIFs, so you can't export transparency channels, and the generations don't seem to have any understanding of elements. So you have to ask it to make a green screen in the background, which is really kind of bananas. So, you run into these situations where I'm trying to get it to like do a low camera angle of someone dancing in front of a green screen so then I can key out the person. And it's like the main problem is you can't ever get what you want with this thing. Like you'll notice the prompt is getting longer and longer. Look, it says brightly lit, but this person looks like they're completely in silhouette. It's crazy. And all these generations take a while to do, and on the unlimited account, you can only do 2 at a time, and sometimes they go into a queue. So what you end up doing is queuing a couple, doing something else, checking the web page again. For some reason, everyone's wearing black clothes in like every single take. So for the next prompt, I actually asked it to do white clothes, and it did. And now I'm finally like, okay, this is more what I wanted. But of course, the morphing is out of control. Like you can keep trying it over and over again. You might get a couple seconds of usable footage, but for the for the most part, it just looks pretty goofy. Another interesting thing about these generations is in the prompt, I specifically said a single person. I didn't specify a gender, yet the AI is choosing a woman in almost every single generation. So AI has like these weird biases. So, like, whatever the training data is, it's just regurgitating what the training data has. So, if there's a bias in the training data, then you're going to have a bias in your output also. So that's kind of another thing they need to look out for. And here's an example where I had a static image that I gave it, and I wanted to have a moose coming out of the fog, and it came so close to getting what I wanted. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to reiterate on this a few times, and one of these iterations will be just what I want. But for some reason, every iteration after this did not contain a moose. And like at one point the prompt was just moose, 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 moose. And it was so frustrating because I knew from that first time seeing the moose, I was like, this is definitely possible. But for some reason, I couldn't get it to replicate that ever again. And this is like a constant thing with generative AI, is like it just doesn't do what you want it to do, and it sometimes just ignores the prompt. It's really frustrating. And that kind of brings us to the whole issue of the prompts, and that is that sometimes the software just ignores them. And the problem with that is most of what we do in film is art direction, and it's super important that the software always does what you're asking it to do. And from what I can tell, it seems like the prompts are basically voodoo. A perfect example of this is right on the Runway's webpage. Is they give an example of a prompt that they say gives good results, and it's just a word salad of nonsense. Like, look at this. It's so it's the subject, sharp focus, okay, and then extremely detailed, photorealistic, raw footage, 8K, high resolution, raw candid cinema, 16 millimeter color graded Portra 400 film, ultra realistic. So it's both photorealistic and ultra realistic, cinematic film. And then it just goes on to throw in subsurface scattering and ray tracing, which is, of course, is ridiculous because subsurface and ray tracing are computer rendering terms, and Portra is a type of Kodak film. So it just feels like it's almost like they know that this doesn't work, and they're just like, yeah, just throw a bunch of random words at it, and it might make something kind of cool. It's also a little comical that they specify Portra 400 as if you can specify the exact speed of the film, and this doesn't work at all. This is, pure fantasy at this point. All right, and a little note on the raw file format that was mentioned. If you open up these MPEG-4s with FFprobe, show streams and select streams, select the video stream. Also, these file names are pretty gross. They have spaces in them, so there's like these quotes. It's a fragment of the prompt is in there too. It's a little goofy. But if you look inside the file, you see it's only 8 bits per channel. So basically, if you're expecting to color grade this footage, it's not going to work. There's pretty much no latitude to work with. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if the prompts are barely art directable, like, what are we even doing here? It feels like I just end up with a bunch of random footage that I'm trying to piece together like it's a found footage project. And honestly, I keep feeling like that scene from Back to the Future when Doc has the mind reading helmet on, and he's like, this damn thing doesn't work at all. And that's kind of the feeling I get using this. And the prompt isn't even the biggest problem with it. The biggest problem is actually the training data. So there's a pretty huge legal problem with the training data. The Verge reported that it turns out they were just scraping videos from YouTube, copywritten videos, without licensing them. And you can't do that. You have to license data if you're going to use it in your product. So that's a pretty freaking huge problem. And you'll notice when Lionsgate is doing their thing, they actually said they're going to train it just on Lionsgate videos, probably for that reason, for legal reasons. So the Verge article is actually referencing a article from 404 Media, which has supposedly a leaked document from an employee at Runway, a Google spreadsheet of all the YouTube channels that it's scraping. And the list is just staggering. The numbers, like look at the row count on the left. It's just shy of 3,000 or 4,000 channels, and each channel can have hundreds or thousands of videos. It's, copyright theft on an incredible scale. Like you think like back in the 90s when, people were getting in trouble for downloading some songs on Napster, yet this giant billion-dollar company is just like, oh no, we're just going to steal everyone's hard work. And it's sad because, a lot of these channels are just regular people working really hard to, create something they care about and tell people about something they're interested in. And it's a lot of work, and to not get compensated for that is crazy. And I've noticed some of these AI companies saying like, oh well, we're using it's publicly available data. And it's like, okay, but there's a difference between publicly available and copywritten. Like the movie theater is publicly available, but I can't go to a movie theater and sit there and record the whole movie. Like that's illegal. And I noticed while I was scrolling through that list of YouTube channels, I came across a familiar name. Jarno Cordia was one of the world's top wingsuit pilots, and he was uploading a lot of footage onto YouTube. There's nearly 500 videos of some of the best wingsuit flying ever. And it's just beautiful footage, just incredible. He's, pushing the edge of what's possible. But, of course, Runway had to scrape it all and, steal all of his work because you can't get to $1 billion valuation without stealing work from a deceased person. So let's see how Runway interpreted the footage. Wow, it's terrible. I mean, it just goes back to that thing again. It just doesn't work. Like, what's this? This person, they're all morphing. They've got like two arms coming out of one side of their body, and they have like a little towel over them. And these look kind of like maybe paragliders, but then now they're just like flipping around into shapes. And I don't understand how you can get, the best footage as input, and then this is the output. Like it seems like it doesn't work. And it seems like a lot of these AI companies seem to be trying to do a little bit of kind of sleight of hand. Like they're saying like, oh no, we're not taking those copywritten works. We're just, generating something brand new. But the reality is they've basically made an engine that runs on copywritten data. Without the copywritten data, the engine is worthless. All the value is in the data that's going into it. So clearly that data is worth a lot of money, and these companies that are worth, billions of dollars really want to get that data for free, and they don't want to license it. But say even if they did license the data, say if they hired 100 drone operators to give them tens of thousands of hours of footage of flying over landscapes, then the question becomes, well, what are we even doing the generative AI part of it for? Why don't we just use the original drone footage? It starts to feel kind of like it's a stock footage situation, except with more steps to avoid paying licensing fees. So overall, like, this is really an impressive tech demo, essentially. Like, it's really cool what it can do, but I don't see how this is useful in a production standpoint. Like, I mean, I guess if you're making drone shots going over mountains, that could be useful, but I guess it feels like, and this is what surprised me when I was using it, is it feels so much more limited than what it was hyped up to be. Like, I feel like all the AI hype is like, oh, you can do anything, it can build anything, and, you just tell it what to do. But the reality is the prompts are really hard to art direct. And then when it does make stuff, it's not always what you want. And most of what we do is art direction. So I guess kind of the whole point of making this video was after using this, I wanted to kind of share my experience because it wasn't at all what I expected. And I feel like people get overexcited about this stuff because they're like, oh man, but 2 years ago it was really terrible and now it's pretty good. And, another 2 years from now it's going to be perfect. And you got to remember that past performance is not indicative of future results. Like, we might have had a couple breakthroughs in the past couple of years, but that's not a guarantee that we'll make another leap forward in the next couple of years. It might slow down a little bit. And in any case, right now in its current state, I definitely wouldn't recommend this for production. It's just not even close to ready. So we'll see what happens, but for right now, I'd temper your expectations a little bit. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry I haven't made a video in like a year. Whatever. It's not my job.